there was no issue, obviously. The Democrats familiar with the conversation said he insisted he could not control how his followers communicated. Maybe because he can't, he's a 77-year-old man, and the New York Times is like, yeah, this guy's gotta have a great handle on tech. He can control the way his millions of followers online are talking and communicating about other candidates in a really completely non-malicious way at all. Nothing said about Kamala Harris that's been brought up has been malicious. It's just that simple. Anyway, but 2 years later, as both senators pursued their party's 2020 presidential nomination, and Mrs. Harris returned to the Hamptons to collect campaign checks, Mr. Sanders broadcast an observation of his own after Harris raised doubts about his Medicare for All plan. I don't go to the Hamptons to raise money from billionaires, he tweeted last August, elevating a message that his supporters had already been pushing. Thousands of retweets followed. Oh no. Like, really? This is, I did not read this article. It's 3,000 words long. I obviously did not read it. But, like, this is the best that they're coming up with here. Like, just a completely normal substantive policy critique in response to a policy critique that sure is fair and finds its own substance, that she made of him. Like, what? Like, this it's like, people with the same worldview do kind of tend to think and feel the same things, though. Like, it's kind of the shocking thing. Like, you guys all hate Bernie, and I mean, I assume you're not coordinating it. It's just the way you see the world. It's fine. It's fine that people think the same things. Like, that is the kind of the way it works. Anyway, since the start of Sanders' first presidential campaign in 2016, his colossal online support base has been, by turns, a source of peerless strength and perpetual aggravation, envied and caricatured by rivals. Again, this is like trying to have your cake and eat it too, and who covet such loyalty, and feared by Democrats who faced harassment from his followers, often pretty much the same people, and alternately cherished and gently scolded by the candidate himself, I think, unfortunately. The zeal of Sanders fans helped establish him as one of the 2020 frontrunners a week before the Iowa caucuses. Roll credits right there. Like, that's the reason. That's the reason for this piece. I get the sense. No other Democrat attracts supporters more dedicated to forcefully defending their campaign and lashing his foes, more willing to repeatedly donate their time and money to sustain the bid. Through the end of 2019, Sanders has raised $100 million from over 5 million individual donations without ever holding traditional fundraisers, leading the primary field. Thank you very much. Yet as Sanders moves to position himself as the standard bearer for a party he's criticized from the left for decades, the power of his internet army has also alarmed Democrats who are familiar with its underside experienced in ways large and small. And I think here's the point where we have to talk about the other candidates' internet army and the fact that, again, it gets absolutely no press because their candidates that they like are with policies friendly to the establishment. Like, it's really, really apparent here that there is just no, like there's support. There's supporters on all sides here that are incredibly, incredibly aggressive. Like, again, if you've spent any time on Twitter, like, I'm not a big account. Like, this is not a big podcast by any stretch of the imagination. But, literally, I say one thing, and I don't think I've ever really gotten on the show, really, aside from a few passing mentions. What I pretty much said is when Kamala Harris dropped out, I said Kamala Harris is a cop under Neera Tanden and Jeremy Fassler's mentions, who really both pro-Kamala people. Neera Tanden is just generally an establishment figure, and Jeremy Fassler is a stark, raving, mad lunatic who calls for, like, awful things happening, like Glenn Greenwald, just because, I don't know, he the audacity to attack Hillary and Rachel Maddow, but whatever. So I said, oh yeah, he's a cop, or sorry, she's a cop after she dropped out, just to kind of troll him. And then what did I get? Literally people calling me racist, people calling me sexist, people calling me a white progressive, people saying, oh, I had a punchable yet uneffable face. Like, it's just, it was insane. It was popping up little by little by little, and this is, again, from an account with less than 100 followers. Like, it could happen like that. It's just what? Like, there is vitriol, incredible amounts of vitriol, especially from the Sadie Doyle types. And this comes from, there's this verified gay comedian who was like, what a weird racist white progressive who is a stupid lame podcast. I was like, and it's an ugly weirdo. Like, I mean, and all these pathological attacks, like, for example, this guy Michael Harriot, talking about Bernie Bros and the Wicked Joe Rogan scandal, was coming out and saying things like, Bernie supporters are pretty much the Bernie Bros are the people who ate their boogers at school and then grew up to like lecture women on things. Like, this is such a weird, like, pathologizing and characterizing of such an incredibly diverse group of people. Again, for the last time here, Bernie Sanders does the best with women and the best with people of color. Like, to saying Bernie's supporters has trouble with women voters is just an outright falsehood, an outright fabrication. No evidence to that whatsoever, and there hasn't been really for a very, very long time. He's doing better all the time with black voters. He's second, but really weaning it down. Best with all voters of color, and best, again, with women. So that is a very, very important thing to just go with straight out of hand. Bernie supporters are, in large, not bros. They're poor, more darker skinned, more likely to be women than anybody else in the race. So that is the reality there of the situation. Here's a little bit more disturbing part of this article. Some progressive activists who declined to back Sanders have begun traveling with private security after incurring online harassment. Several well-known feminist writers said they have received death threats. A state party chairwoman changed her phone number. A Portland lawyer saw her business rating tumble on an online review site after tussling with Sanders supporters on Twitter. Again, this seems to be, death threats are, I'm assuming, pretty common online. I don't know how credible these ones were, and I don't want to make any kind of assumption on this, but have I seen death threats directed to many Bernie Sanders supporters, and some pretty awful things said about them, including me when I made that account. Like, I didn't get any death threats, but there were some pretty, invocations of violence, and I'm not going to cry about that. I don't care. Like, I live a perfectly happy life. That didn't make me frown one bit, but I haven't seen, the key part is here, I haven't seen these, so I can't really speak to the validity of them from these people, if they're so well known, like, and they really want to, if they really want to come in and smear it, they'd be posting screenshots on screenshots, like, we'd see this stuff. So again, I think questioning the validity of it's fair. I'm not saying it's not true, but again, you got to think about the reasons these people have to do. So, some of the things that they do, it's like they're trying to stop Bernie at all costs. Like, we see the media bias that's been pointing out here time and time again, and it's like there is another example here cited with NYT Bernie, the wonderful liberal activist with ALS. He's been a fearless advocate for Medicare for all. He decided to endorse Elizabeth Warren for president, something that I very, very strongly disagreed with, but did not say anything about. And again, I have not spent hours through Twitter like the New York Times probably has trolling through this, and I will probably not be able to, because I'm not a paid reporter on this stuff, and unfortunately the New York Times does pay reporters to troll through Twitter, looking at every little one follower account insulting Bernie Sanders. But I mean, from what I've seen with NYT Bernie, and I've seen people desperate, like, really, like, the way I have, like, really questioning the decision, really saying, we have to, like, I really get the sense people, like, they were very, very sad about this, but they're like, we can't attack him, like, he has ALS, like, this is really bad, like, we really need to, I don't get this decision at all, but I'm not going to be attacking. I respect it, but I don't get it. I really struggle with it. Yeah, so, I mean, most people saying that he'll be used, he'll be used by Elizabeth Warren. That's one tweet that I saw that could be described as slightly insulting. It had 5 likes, 199 followers from the tweets. This is 21 hours ago. Again, I'm not doing an entire troll here on this, but I have not seen completely. Again, maybe you can find some stuff, and I'm certainly not doubting that they're there, but from what I've seen, I haven't seen any negative comments show up on Twitter at all about Adi Barkan calling him a sellout or anything like that. Although I have deep questions about his decision. So anyway, and also Fred Guttenberg, a father of a shooting victim in 2018, who criticized Sanders' statements about gun violence. And I feel like a lot of this stuff is some of the things that, again, I'm sure there are some bad stuff in there, and I'm sure, for example, Breonna Joy Gray, who is a black woman, Bernie Sanders' press secretary, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the darling of many of these people, turns around, comes in, and endorses Bernie Sanders. That pisses a lot of people off. I'm sure she, like the point is, there are ugly, vile, nasty threats on both and all sides, because there are more than two sides in this Democratic primary fight, from all supporters. But I think the Bernie Sanders people are the most passionate on policy, and most of the time, maybe second to like Elizabeth Warren's fans, and probably a distant beat to third to Pete. The most well versed on policy. Like policy is generally what attracts them to Bernie Sanders, if it's not his kind of like honesty that he's kind of known for. But that is something that I think they are very, very passionate about and care a lot about, because it really impacts them. Medicare for all, free college, that is stuff that impacts everybody, and it's stuff that is key central tenets to Bernie Sanders' campaign, and he's willing to. The supporters are well versed in them, and they're going to come out and really disagree with people on substance in ways that are probably a little bit different from what these people are used to. Like, for example, the top of the article with Kamala Harris, I think that's the sense of reading as a massive personal attack. That's how Hillary read it, that's for sure, during the 2016 primary. But the truth is, these are things about policy, and the Bernie Sanders supporters care about policy. Are there some death threats? Are there probably some bad stuff? Not that I've seen. Not that anyone's presented publicly. But, I'm sure there are. Because that's just part of online. And but I got news for you. A bunch of Bernie Sanders supporters, a bunch of prominent Bernie Sanders supporters, get them too from all sides. Like, there's nasty stuff. Not always death threats, but personal attacks against character, smears, stuff like that. Like, that is just part of being online. And a special word of advice to people who may not be able to handle this. If it's really bad, like, sure, get a armed guard or whatever. But I mean, like, can we just be real for ourselves and talk about the issues here? Like, the fact that some activists are getting some blowback for saying something that other people believe is wrong on Twitter, like, just really first and foremost shows me that these people don't get the process of Twitter. Like, Twitter is a way where if you put your thoughts out there, you can have 1 follower or 1 million followers. Like, you're gonna get some pushback if someone thinks it's dumb. They have every right to comment on it, but you don't have to hear their comments. You can filter them out, or better yet, you can log off. Oh my gosh, what a foreign concept. The idea of logging off for once in your life and not using random 1-follower accounts to smear Bernie Sanders, that is crazy. Oh my gosh. All right, blue checks, try and keep that in mind. That's all the time we got for you today on Red Alert. Thank you so much for joining us today for our season finale. We got a new podcast coming in the works, but season 2 of Red Alert will always be available for you to listen to. So catch up, rewind, enjoy your favorite episode from the season. Hope you like this season. We will be announcing on Newsflash a new podcast episode soon. We'll be back Thursday with the midweek Newsflash episode. Until then, thank you so much for listening. My name is Spencer Walsh.